Let's talk about big events that took place last Friday. And that, of course, that vote in the House of Commons passing the bill for assisted dying. It's a bill that contains an awful lot of controversy, even people like me who are in favour in principle of assisted dying. I'd love to have a law for that, but I want a heck of a lot of safeguards to protect people who might be vulnerable to influence or coercion, or simply not feel they've got anything left to live for because no one is helping them, including the NHS, with palliative care if they're dying. But that bill did pass, and there's been quite a lot of concern about whether or not it's actually going to become law. Reform UK have said quite categorically their manifesto for 2029 election will be clear that they will repeal this law. It's not due to come into place until 2029. But right now, that bill is going to go through the House of Lords. So many peers saying that they are going to do their best to take action against that bill in the House of Lords. Well, let's talk about this with former Conservative MP Nick Fletcher, who joins us. A very good morning, afternoon, apologies to you, Nick.
Afternoon.
Thanks for joining us. Now, you are very concerned about sort of what you've called state-sponsored suicide, as some are calling it. We've had some debates about, the principle, debates about the practicalities, the safeguards, even the cost. Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, has said, look, the NHS are going to have to make cuts elsewhere to pay for the cost of dealing with assisted suicide cases. It could be up to £1 billion that needs to be spent, 15 grand plus per person. What are your main objections to MPs voting this bill through?
Well, first and foremost, it goes against all my Christian beliefs, and I believe we still live in a Christian country, so I think they should actually account for something. But it's the first time that us as a nation, as individuals, we're going to actually have to choose whether we want to live or die. We've never had that burden before, and you're going to get an awful lot of people there coming towards the end of their days, and they're actually going to feel that burden. And when people talk about coercion, it'll be coercion from themselves. Do I actually want to put my family through this? Can I leave them some money? Can I do this? Can I take this away? And this is going to be tragic. It really is. And as I say, it fundamentally changes the way that we look at our years. We've got to choose to live, which we've never had to do before. And I think it's disgraceful. And I'm so disappointed and upset about what happened last week. I mean, decriminalising abortion at the beginning of the week.
Yeah, I was upset by that. But here's the thing. You say this is your Christian beliefs. I'm an atheist. I actively don't want people with religious views to have any say over what I and my family can do. I really object to that. Although we have a Judeo-Christian country and constitutionally a Christian country, I get that. But I find it, I don't think I should have to impose my views on how you live your life, and I don't want you to be able to impose your views on how I live my life.
The state is imposing its views on how I've got to live my life now. It's now making me choose. But
it's an easy choice for you. You wouldn't go for it. But I certainly know that my family, my parents, my husband, myself, we have discussed this and what we would want. We may change our minds when the time comes, but we would like the right to choose our own death. And there are lots of reasons why people might say, I don't want to be, living with dementia for 10 years in a care home. I don't want to be, living in a wheelchair or whatever. Now, my view was that bill that it both went too far. It didn't have the safeguards I wanted. It didn't go far enough, because I would extend it to people who felt their pain or their disability was intolerable. But I want safeguards galore. I mean, absolutely galore. And I thought this bill was completely wrong. I thought the way it was pushed through by Kim Leadbeater in the committee was completely wrong, and I would say downright immoral as well. But it's a debate people have, and you say we're going to have to choose to live or die for the first time. People already do that. People do take their lives, and medics do knowingly give drugs to people which they know will kill them. It's happening. Isn't it better that we do it openly?
No, because this bill actually endorses suicide. I spent much of my time when I was down in Parliament dealing with the fact that 14 men a day are actually taking their lives. And I know 3 to 4 women are taking their lives every day as well. It's a huge amount of people that are doing it, and this actually endorses it. Almost says that suicide is dignified. It's terrible, this thing. Life is precious, and we should be doing everything that we can to protect it and preserve it. This is a terrible, terrible bill. It was a terrible thing for Parliament.
What if someone's life isn't precious? What if somebody, I've had a grandmother. I had a grandmother who spent 25 years with dementia. There's no sodding way I'm going to A, want to live like that myself, B, impose that on my husband, C, impose that on my daughter. I don't think that would be a precious life. That wouldn't be a life that was worthwhile to me. And I would certainly at that point, I think, choose to take my life. And I would like the right to do that and to be helped to do that in a dignified way at a time of my choosing with my family. But I don't think that this law would help that situation. I think my concern about this law would be that vulnerable people who are not getting the adequate care that they need near the end of their life, who are without financial help, without family, or with family that are pressuring them, could be coerced, could be pressured, could feel I've got no one to help me.
You're never going to take that away, though. You can't take that away when you put a bill like this in. And I found
you're saying there's no safeguard that could prevent that?
No, there's no safeguard. And when I was in Parliament, I found out that the poor bills are all the ones that came and so many different lists and so many different amendments. And it's because the poor bills, it's because we're trying to do something that fundamentally goes against what we all are as individuals, which is human beings and supposedly decent human beings. And this is where, and you've spoken there about dementia, you've spoken there about chronic illnesses. And this is my other concern about this. This bill, it will change over time. And not only that,
the slippery slope,
people do not realise what these statutory instruments are, how easy these Henry VIII powers are.
Yeah, just explain that, because the health, as a part of this bill, the Health Secretary gets sort of the right to sort of wave a magic wand and change the rules and the safeguards at any time at his own will.
At any time at his own will, and it doesn't go to the House. It goes into a committee room where a dozen or so MPs have been picked. And that's what usually happens. They're actually picked. So they're only going to pick people who are actually for this bill.
Yeah, of course.
This bill. And you have MPs in there who've got a huge amount of casework to do, a huge amount of studying to do. They get put in these bills. And it's almost a rush to get in and a rush to get out of these committees. They don't want to be there. They've got so much constituency work to do, so many things to do. And then these Henry VIII powers are going to be able to make fundamental changes to this bill. And when I did a speech on this in Parliament, I spoke of a young lady, 29, in the Netherlands, took her own life because of mental health issues, against all her family's wishes. And this is what I've been trying to say to people. If you turn up at a hospital one day and you find out that your son or daughter has taken their own life because of mental health issues, and you've had no say in it, you've not been able to do anything about it, and they turn up there, and a 28 or a 29-year-old has taken their own life and is state-sponsored, I've been asking people to write to their MPs to tell them to stop this bill. I'm telling you now, when this happens in 10 years' time, and I'll take no pleasure, no joy in saying I told you so.
Yeah. Oh no,
writing to MPs.
I think from this legislation, I would like to think, but I understand your point in terms of, is there any way of writing this law where you don't end up with that, as you're saying? But certainly this legislation, I think is an abomination, and we will absolutely live to regret it. But it's interesting to see how much the laws can change it. Nick Fletcher, it's been really interesting to talk to you as former Conservative MP. Really appreciate that.